Good morning. 1 year ago yesterday, I stood in front of the Brooks community of a year ago and asked students and teachers to imagine what a series of future greetings between a student and a favorite teacher might be like. We imagined greeting at the boohoo line at your graduation, meeting in the food line at your 5-year reunion, and even bumping into each other 20 years or so from now in Yellowstone National Park. My point was that relationships are what make meaningful education possible, and that meaningful relationships are based on integrity. Today, I stand here in this place in front of this Brooks community to remind us that it's still true. A few years ago, soon after my son John opened a Facebook account for me, Lisa Israeli Isaacs sent me a friend request. Lisa had been a student at Baldwin School, where I started my teaching career 28 years ago. Good golly. I accepted and was soon seeing pictures of Lisa with her husband and 3 children, the oldest being 6 years old. At some point, I posted some videos of a whale watch on my wall. That evening, she sent me a message saying that her girls were entranced by the videos and were, at that very moment, pretending to be whales and flopping about on the carpet. She immediately took a video and posted it so that I could see the effect that my videos had on her giggling girls. I admit that tears welled up in my eyes. The next time I was in Philadelphia, Lisa and her husband invited me to their home for lunch. I think you can imagine just how joyful that visit was. You were Mommy's teacher? Did you have whales in your class? I love my teacher. This afternoon, I'm meeting Marissa Porges. Marissa is currently a research fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, specializing in counterterrorism and counter-radicalism. Marissa was also in my AP US history class in 1995. I am so excited to see her again after 17 years. I'm hoping she can come back to give a talk and that you'll get to meet her too. Just last Wednesday, I walked into the dining room and there was Chris Wilcox, a Brooks alum from 5 years ago. After a warm greeting, Chris told me that he had graduated with a degree in economics and finance and is looking for a job in the Boston area. He asked me if I remembered the game theory lesson we did in class. Of course, how could I ever forget? The class was divided into 2 teams, representing 2 competing companies. Each group needed to figure out what price to charge for their product. The trick is that if you charge a price too high and the other team beats your price, you lose most of your sales. Despite the misgivings of his teammates, Chris was able to convince them that he knew the right answer. He was so sure, and he made a big deal out of it. When the prices were revealed, Chris's team had selected a price just $1 higher than that of the other team. They had lost. You should have heard the cries of outrage by his teammates. Chris was so embarrassed, but within minutes, we were all laughing and debriefing the lesson. It couldn't have been a better class. So why does Chris remember it after all of these years? Probably because the lesson in hubris was so abundantly clear, but Chris also remembers it because he took a risk. He put his whole reputation on the line in that small group, and he was wrong. Then it was okay. In fact, it was great. His reputation was actually enhanced because he was able to show some humility, too. Chris was being genuine throughout this whole time. So why do I share these three stories? Well, because they get at the heart of why I choose this life of a teacher. I get a huge kick out of being around teenagers. And the relationships I've made with my students and my colleagues are among the most meaningful experiences in my life. Hey, Brooks' philosophy applies to me too. And shouldn't it? But what about that word, integrity? It's a tricky word. Yes, it does mean being honest. But it means quite a bit more than that. It means being who you appear to be. Being who you say you are. Being genuine, authentic. If you're putting on pretenses, playing games, or not letting others know who you really are, then it's very hard to have a genuine relationship with anyone. Where is the meaning in a relationship if you're pretending to be someone you are not? And another thing, if we want to have meaningful, healthy relationships with anyone, we need to live in a community that allows everyone to be their true self. Our community itself needs to have integrity. The horrible events of last week show us all too well what happens when someone in our midst seeks to demean, belittle, or threaten another person in our home. I am very encouraged by your responses to these terrible acts. I'm feeling that you want to live in a home where you can be who you really are, where I can be who I really am. That's a community with integrity. That's a community where I can thrive and where I want to spend these precious moments of my life with you. And that brings me to academic integrity. When a teacher asks you to write your response to a short story, she's not asking you to look up that short story on SparkNotes and copy or even rephrase the ideas that you find there. She wants to know what you think, because what you think matters. Let me say that again. What you think matters. When a student decides to cheat by glancing at a neighbor's test paper, or by copying her roommate's homework, or by using a translator to write his Spanish essay, or by taking a picture of a test on his cell phone and passing it on to others who haven't taken the test yet, or by cutting and pasting text from the internet and passing it off as one's own. That's a violation of the major school rule, of a major school rule. And depending on the level of that violation, the consequences may lead to a student coming before the discipline committee, may lead to suspension, or even dismissal. And that is sad. But the real sadness comes when we go back to those relationships. Would you send a friend request to a teacher if at some point you had compromised the trust between you and that teacher? No whale videos, no flopping, giggling kids. Will the greeting be the same in the dining hall in 5 years if you remember that you plagiarized your term paper? Will you actually avoid your teacher in 20 years when you come back for a reunion with your family? What a tragedy. But the good news is that Brooks is all about relationships. And your teachers and I understand that you will make mistakes. There will probably be some consequences for those mistakes. But there is also forgiveness. Trust can be regained, and relationships can be healed. Having integrity doesn't mean being perfect, or even perfectly honest. But it does mean that you work, and that you work hard at being your true self, your best self, in all your relationships, including your academic ones. And your teachers will love it when you come back to Brooks to visit. Your teachers might even accept your friend request after you graduate. And your teachers will be there to meet your flopping, giggling children. Thank you.